Welcome back, Airsofters, to another episode of Airsoft Command. This time we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about camouflage and airsoft, and specifically which of these is the best camouflage pattern for airsofting purposes. I've got 6 different patterns here. Some of them are very common on the airsofting field, and some are a little more rare. But we're going to be talking to you a little bit about each pattern, and we'll be showing you some footage of some camouflage effectiveness with an airsoft loadout with the plate carrier and the helmet and all that stuff, to show you how what sticks out in a given environment and what works and what doesn't. To start off with, I've got some BDU woodland right here. This is what I'm wearing right now. This is definitely the most common pattern that I see. It's very inexpensive. It's been around for decades. It's very, very popular, just even in remakes and stuff like that. It has 4 colors. It's brown, tan, black, and green. It's very, very popular. It has a larger pattern to it, so unlike, say, a Marpat woodland or something, it's got a very large analog pattern to it. So you've just got these squiggly shapes all over it. I think it works very well in both summer and fall, like it is now, where it's mostly brown. I will say this, the BDU is very dark. It has the brown and the black. It just makes it so dark that sometimes it really sticks out when you're in a more tanner environment, or when you have all these dark leaves. It's just so dark that it really sticks out. Sometimes it works really well when you're behind tree knots and things like that, because without that sunlight behind the trees and shadows, it does work really well. But when you're in the sunlight, this pattern can really stick out because of how dark it is. It is really good. It's very classic. You really can't go wrong with it. You can really combine any kind of gear with it. I have OD gear, and so the green really does match with the BDU pattern. You can put Coyote gear with it as well, and it'll go well with that. I've also put Multicam equipment with the BDUs, and it just didn't really work right. The Multicam BDU combination just kind of popped. The contrast was too much, and so it just kind of just highlighted the person rather than helping to blend in better. So BDU definitely works really well. Summertime and fall time. It's just really dark. I don't think it's the best, but it does work very well. Next up, I have 3-color desert. This is kind of like BDU. This is just the desert pattern of the BDU, the M81 woodland. So this is tricolor desert, or DCU, desert combat uniform. This was used in the Iraq War and Operation Iraqi Freedom. It has just 3 colors, like the name suggests. It just has a lightish brown, a tan, and kind of a very mint green. It's a little bit hard to see, but it definitely blends in with the tan and the very, very light green. This pattern, I think, is a very cool pattern. I really like it. I think it's just iconic when you see the tricolor desert uniform and then like a BDU plate carrier or whatnot. I think it looks really cool, and it reminds me of kind of the early 2000s and stuff like that, especially when the entire military wore this or BDU. But it just does not work. As you will see in the footage, it's just so bright, it doesn't really work here in the woods. The tan, it does have some brown in it, but it just doesn't have enough brown. I think one thing that would work better than tricolor desert would be like chocolate chip camo, the older version of this, where it has a lot more brown. But if you live like in out west or something, this might be a really good option for you because it's very bright and deserty. But it just doesn't work out here in the woods. I combined it with Multicam because I didn't have any desert pants, but it just doesn't really work very well. It's just super, super bright, and it just pops out way too much. Next up, I have Multicam and I have OCP. Now, OCP and Multicam are the same but different, okay? Multicam is a little bit newer than OCP. OCP is what the Army is transitioning to currently, away from universal camouflage pattern. Really the difference between Multicam and OCP is Multicam, it's a little bit hard to see, but Multicam has these vertical elements. So you have like these white line and dark line right here and green line right there. So it has some vertical elements to it. If you look at OCP, there aren't any vertical elements. This pattern in Multicam is also a little bit smaller. The splotches in Multicam are a little bit bigger. If you look at the dark brown, they're just a little bit bigger than the Multicam. They're very similar, so I use them both in conjunction because that's just what I have. But OCP and Multicam work exceptionally well, especially in this time of year when you have a lot of browns. You've got a little bit of green, like these green holly trees behind me, so you still have the green element in there, but it's got lots of brown in it, and it's got a little bit of this whitish color to brighten it up a little bit. So Multicam and OCP, they just work really well this time of year. Multicam is extremely popular right now. Everybody wears Multicam. Basically, most people wear either Multicam or BDU most of the time, because both of those are readily available. You can get any kind of equipment in Multicam. So if you like Multicam, you can have your entire loadout be in Multicam. Multicam does well with both OD green gear and Coyote gear. I think Coyote matches Multicam a little bit more, but I wear OD just because I just think the woods are a little bit more green than brown. But it does work very, very well, and it's a very popular pattern, and for good reason. It's got a lot of different colors in it, so it blends very well in the woods at this time and in the summertime. Next up, I have A-TACS FG, which is a little bit more rare. A-TACS FG is definitely a greener pattern to it. It stands for foliage green. And A-TACS FG, I really like A-TACS FG a lot. It works pretty well this time of year. As you know, it is a green pattern, so that is kind of a little bit of a disadvantage during this time of year when it's more brown. Because as you can see, it's got some tan and a little bit of brown, but it's pretty much green pattern. So it's good, but it's not the best in this time of year. And then next, after that, I have Project Honor Camouflage. This is one of LBX's patterns. It's a 4-color. It has tan, brown, a dark green, and a very light green. At first, I've never really been much of a fan of digital patterns, because if you look around the woods, there's not very many straight edges around. You've got a lot of these irregular shapes like Multicam, BDU, and then like A-TACS, where it's like a pattern within a pattern. But this Project Honor did a lot better than I thought it was, quite frankly. I got it because it was actually very inexpensive when I bought it. But it works really well. The tan helps to break up the pattern because it's very high contrast. And the bigger your pattern is, the better it will do long range. The smaller patterns like Multicam or maybe A-TACS, they tend to do better at close range. Because the larger your pattern is, the better it will break up yourself at distance. And you won't just turn into a single colored blob. Like Multicam kind of turns into like a greenish, brownish blob at a distance. This camo does really well for long distance. I thought it did really well in the effectiveness video. I didn't think it was quite the best. I would say probably the best camouflage for this time of year of what I have in front of me is probably the Multicam, the OCP. It's just got enough brown in it, and kind of how it fades in and out of itself. I just think this is probably the best camouflage pattern you can get for this time of year amidst all these. Now there are some, obviously these aren't every single camouflage out there. I think Cryptic Highlander does excellent in this time of year, probably better than Multicam does. Marpat Woodland does really well. You see that on the field lots of times. One thing about Marpat Woodland, it is very dark, like BDU. One thing that I like about the newer patterns, like Multicam and A-TACS and Project Honor, is that it does not have black in it. Black is good for shadows and things like that, but it's just so dark that it just makes you pop out a little bit more, since there isn't very much black in nature, if at all sometimes. So I think that will do it all for this video. Be sure to leave a comment. Tell me what you think about all these patterns. What camouflage do you wear? Do you think Multicam is the best? Do you think maybe A-TACS or Project Honor, BDU, what have you, or camouflage that I don't have here? Tell me what you think. Come back next time, and I'll see you next time on Airsoft Command.